Flint, Michigan. I want to give you the history so you know what happened yesterday. So Flint, as you know, I've covered quite a bit. And what happened in Flint is simple. Governor Rick Snyder chose to appoint an emergency manager, to basically make all the decisions for the city of Flint. Flint was in such bad economic shape because of federal and state government essentially sending all their jobs offshore. So Flint went from like the definition of the American middle class to a dump. So did Detroit. So what happened was Snyder, the Republican extremist governor, appointed an emergency manager who was not elected, appointed, and that emergency manager then got to overrule the elected mayor of Flint, the elected city council men and women of Flint, and that emergency manager, basically a proxy for Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder was making decisions for the city of Flint. Through his emergency manager, decided they should switch to the Flint River because they were trying to privatize the water system. They were building a privatized water pipeline, and during construction, they temporarily went to the Flint River. And they all kind of forgot you have to treat the water with anti-corrosives. So they didn't treat the water with anti-corrosive chemicals, and the water went into the pipes, and lead started breaching off and got into the citywide water system. And I talk to people every single day who are still sick, who are not getting their medical bills covered, who are getting no relief in Flint. And this was all because of Governor Rick Snyder and his unelected emergency manager. But no, democracy is under attack because of Russia and Russian trolls, not because like governors are just allowed to just elect or appoint unelected officials to make catastrophic decisions for poor white and black people in Flint, Michigan. That's not an infringement on democracy. So Flint, even though there hasn't been an emergency manager for the last few years, they were still under emergency manager laws. So what was removed was a single emergency manager, and what was put in place was a board of 4 or 5 people, I think it was 4, called the Receivership Transition Advisory Board. And that board was essentially 4 emergency managers. That as a board, I was there in Flint and I saw this up close. My former cameraman and me and Ty sat at a meeting, and we watched the mayor of Flint have to go and basically get approval from unelected businessmen for the budget, for funds, for everything. This was going on in Flint for years. So the very people, Governor Snyder, his administration, his environmental agency, the very people that poisoned the people of Flint, the mayor of Flint, the city council of Flint, had to then go before to beg for funds and beg for action. So we poison you, and then you ask us for permission to help you. That's how it works in America. Press the share button. Let's get this out to more people. So, yesterday, Michigan returned full local control to Flint, ending all financial oversight. I'll read you a little bit. Governor Rick Snyder's administration has returned full local control back to Flint city government and removed all state oversight under Michigan's emergency manager law. The very law that I just told you is totally undemocratic and awful. Mayor Karen Weaver requested the state relinquish all authority over the city's financial matters, while the Regional Transition Advisory Board recommended it be dissolved. This marks the first time Flint City Hall has been free from state oversight since November 2011, when an emergency manager was appointed to take over management of the city's affairs. Quote, city management and elected leadership have worked hard to put Flint on a stronger path, Governor Snyder said in a statement. With continuing cooperation between the city and state, Flint has an opportunity to take advantage of the momentum, I don't know what he's talking about, of the momentum being felt around the city in terms of economic development, which could lead to a stronger budgets and improved services for residents. That's just a lie. That's just a straight up lie. Because I've been to Flint 9 times. I've spoken at this point to over 100 residents. I've spoken with city officials that aren't bought off. There is no economic development in the city of Flint. Maybe for a 10-block radius where they're trying to beautify downtown. But the problem is the majority of people don't have enough money to go spend money downtown. Same thing happened in Detroit. They're trying to get rid of the poor people, build up certain areas. It's called gentrification. It's not that great. Some people think it's great. It ain't great. If you see a Whole Foods, run. But there is no economic momentum or development for working people in Flint or Detroit or Cleveland or Milwaukee or fill in the blank city that used to be blue collar and all their jobs got sent offshore. And this governor, he doesn't give a damn about Flint, Michigan. He does not care. He poisoned them. And I did a story last week. This governor's right-hand man, his name's Rich Baird, literally in a text message to an activist and a resident said, "How dare you vilify the governor? How dare you vilify the governor and talk about him in a negative way? How dare you vilify the man that helped and oversaw your poisoning and then has basically done nothing and helped ensure a cover-up? How dare you?" I got a quote from Melissa Mays. She is a Flint resident. She's one of the leading activists in Flint. She has spoken around the country at conferences. She has gone to Capitol Hill advocating for not just money for Flint, but reform in the EPA, because the water testing rules in the EPA are substandard and are allowing water utilities and independent scientists to basically cheat the system. So there's very dubious water testing going on that as a result, it shows lower numbers of lead in water, and then the EPA says, "Oh, everything's fine in these communities now. It's the lead in the water is now under the allowable limit." Well, Melissa Mays has been sounding the alarm on that now for 4 years. April 25th, mark your calendar. April 25th is the 4-year anniversary of when they switched from Detroit's water to the Flint River. And 4 years later, they still can't drink that water. There are some saying it's safe to drink the water based on fraudulent science. People are still actively being poisoned if they drink that water. Make no mistake about it. On the state of Michigan pulling Flint out of receivership, she said, "I'm definitely not celebrating the state pulling out of Flint because they still control our recovery. All of the money we need to replace pipes and settle lawsuits and keep bottled water going is all controlled by the state. They are backing away now to try to slide away from their responsibility to Flint residents after the state and Snyder's emergency managers poisoned our water, destroyed our infrastructure, destroyed our schools, privatized our public assets and revenue streams, all of which shrunk our tax base. So after Snyder basically destroyed Flint physically, socially, and financially, he decides to bail, to leave us, to pull ourselves out of the state-created disaster on our own." She also said on Governor Snyder's phrasing that there's some economic momentum. She said, "I have no idea what he's talking about. The only revenue stream Flint has left after the state raided our city is our water bill payments, which are 8 times the national average, and mass shutoffs are happening. So the momentum he must be referring to is backwards." You're not hearing the Melissa Mays of the world on CNN, are you? You're not hearing or seeing the Melissa Mays of the world in the New York Times. You're not seeing the lie. You're not getting the lies. The lies. These are lies. Being shot down. You're not seeing Governor Rick Snyder. It's not just Snyder. There's extremist Republican governors all over the country. There's, frankly, pretty bad Democratic governors around the country that are raiding the coffers of middle-class people, are allowing people to be poisoned by their water and then cover it up. But you don't see Melissa Mays. You don't hear from Melissa Mays in the media. But certain people in the media will not show Melissa Mayes, will not allow lies to be shot down, will not make it their business to expose lies. You want to know why I think Flint is very important? Why I still cover it? Because it's not about just Flint. Flint is a microcosm. Flint is a symbol for the whole country. Of course, I care about the people specifically in Flint. That's why I keep going back. That's why I cover it. But what I see so clearly is if we normalize what happened in Flint, then we are setting the conditions for it to happen all over the rest of the country. When you normalize Flint, when you normalize American citizens being poisoned by their government, when you normalize American citizens who were poisoned by their government not getting health care from their government to treat their illnesses from that poisoning, when you normalize a governor who was criminally negligent, and I think is guilty of involuntary manslaughter, when you normalize that and you let him off the hook, when you normalize people being so poor that they have no choice but to drink dirty water, then you are setting the conditions for it to happen elsewhere. And it is happening elsewhere. As you've seen from my reporting, there is water contamination happening all over the country. And it's not getting reported on CNN. It's not getting reported on MSNBC. It's not getting reported in the New York Times. It's not even getting reported anymore on certain independent media outlets that I won't mention. Because it's not sexy, right? It doesn't get the clicks. You know, it's not Trump and Russia. It's not Trump's tweets. It doesn't get the clicks. Well, let me tell you something. I've seen it with my own eyes. A company I used to work for raised $2 million because people want this kind of reporting. People want the truth out there. People want the microphone to go back to the people, not pundits, not morons bloviating in studios all the time who don't know their head from their ass. People want reporters who are willing to get out in the field and tell the truth and show the truth and expose corruption and expose oligarchy. And that's why Flint is important, because it's not just about Flint. If we let Flint fall out of the news cycle, if we let Flint be forgotten, then it's going to happen over and over and over and over and over, all over the country.